Hello and welcome back to the Ask Abhijit show, episode 206. I hope everybody is doing great and thank you so much for being on this live stream and for all the questions that you have asked and are gonna ask. Today's episode is gonna be more about questions that I will take from the comments, questions that you've asked in the comments. I'll take a bunch of those, and then if there is time, I'll take more questions from the live chat. So before we get into the questions, as always, let me see who all is there. I can see Vladimir Chavda, Mr. Mauritius, Mohit Pandey, Satish Chauhan, Kostub Jaiswal, Mrinalini, good evening, Aradhya and Vyansh, Ansh Prakash, Jaimin Patel, Mrityunjay Kalita, hello, Pawan Kumar Singh, Lage Raho online, yo bro, Jay Guman, good morning from Mumbai. You're from Montreal. Good. Shivatsa Arpit Agarwal, Jay Dikshit, Rakshit Mishra, bonjour. Ashish Krishna, Matrix, Artillery Chavda, Manan Chopra, Raghuvir Solanki, Subba Reddy, Vayuru, Divine in Nature, Atul Bhatt, Rahul Terwade, Niharika Gupta, Illuminati Creek, hello, Adarsh WRV1313, uh, Kartavirya from East Pakistan, formerly Bangladesh. Hello, I'm good to hear from you. Surendra Gupta, Manjit Kumar, Akhil Nugehalli, Shridhar, Ravindra Chaudhary, Kaustubh Jaishwal, Pritupti Patil, Itachi Uchiha, Anskuli, Rajat Chopra, Namaskaram, Adarsh R, Shagun Chopra, hello from Akashvani, Sunil Kumar, Laxbug, Som Subra Chatterjee, Geopolitical Dubey, good evening, good day. Pawan Kumar Singh, Jaimin Patel, Mohit Pandey, Lauliet, Adarsh R, Threat Ripper, Rizul Kalra, Matrix, Pranab Pulkit, Bojack Horseman, uh, and so many other people. Gautami, Alok Bhatt, Artillery Chavda, Sam X, Sumit Statement, Namaskar, Shubham De, VS, Ganesh Hegde, Shruti, Jaimin, Pragati, Arush, and everybody else. Okay, I'm going to stop that now and start taking questions. So, what questions do we have? Let us begin with questions, comments. This is a comment by Tejas. Question by Tejas. I do not smoke or do anything harmful. I'm 31. I developed a level zero lung cancer. Is it related to genes or pollution? I'm better after surgery. How can people avoid this? This is terrible news, and I hope you're doing much better after the surgery. I'm very sorry to hear about this. Uh, I'm glad that it was caught early, and hopefully it won't cause any problems going forward. If it's caught early and the right measures are taken, surgery, etc., then generally you should be fine. So terrible to hear this. I hope you're doing very well, and I'm sure there are lots of people who come across these unexpected diagnoses. There seems to be an upsurge in cancers, etc., especially among youngsters and among people who have never done any of these things like smoking or whatever it is, and yet you get these things. What is the reason for that? Right, that's the question. Is it related to genes or pollution? So I think that more than genes, it may have something to do with increased levels of pollution that we are experiencing these days in the world. We have microplastics in everything we consume, in water, in all the foods that we consume. The water that we drink is contaminated with God knows how many chemicals and whatnot. Vegetables and other food products are contaminated with pesticides. There are GMOs, genetically modified organisms, and there's a lot more. There are all these issues today that we did not have a few decades earlier. And then there's also hidden problems that we may not be aware of. There are certain parts, regions in the world where there is where radon gas escapes, in small quantities from the ground. And radon gas is a radioactive gas. It's a noble gas, but it's radioactive. And that, if you inhale, could perhaps could definitely increase the possibility that people may get lung cancer and other cancers. Then there is exposure to asbestos toxins like that. In the past, a few decades ago, asbestos was not known to be a causative factor in lung cancer, mesothelioma, etc. So and asbestos used to be used for roofing in buildings and whatnot, and insulation, etc. So there are so many of these factors that most people are not aware of. In the West, at least, they look for, they do, whenever a building is being constructed, they look for possible sources of radon gas contamination, etc. In India, no one is even aware of this. So there are so many factors that could cause this, and somebody who gets this may wonder what on earth happened. I have never smoked, I have never engaged in any risky activity, and yet I got this particular form of cancer. Well, there could be so many causes. So yeah, one has to be careful. You have to take care of your health. You have to get yourself checked if you feel something is amiss, even slightly. And I'm so glad, Tejas, that you discovered this at a very early stage and you got the required surgery. uh, Going forward, I would highly recommend that you get yourself tested. I'm sure the doctors would have told you that you need to get yourself tested once every 6 months or so, or whatever the frequency is, whether it's 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, whatever it is. I think the higher the frequency, the better, especially in the initial few years. Uh, so yeah, and I suppose that this would have to continue for the rest of your life, but I think it's a small price to pay for a long and healthy life. So yeah, that's very surprising, but I'm glad it was caught early and it was addressed. And thank you for sharing this, and I wish you nothing but a very long and healthy and disease free life. All right. Itachi Uchiha says, feeling disheartened by the world's cruelty. I've lost sight of my life's purpose while preparing for the UPSC. And without any family, I feel isolated and uncertain. What do I do? What should I do? I'm 23. You're speaking, you're speaking on behalf of millions of youngsters in this country. There are so many young men, and women, young boys and girls who go through exactly the same thing. And I suppose almost everybody at some stage in their life, especially when you're transitioning from adolescence to adulthood or somewhere before or after, I think, I suppose almost everybody at some point in life, they feel this way. So what should you do about this? That's the question. See, generally you feel this, you get this feeling, this sense of futility, sense of being disheartened, etc., when you realize the true, begin to see the true nature of the world, which is very competitive, very cutthroat, very unforgiving. When you go through childhood, especially if you have reasonably good parents and family, then you live a reasonably sheltered life. I mean, your parents naturally will ensure that you're not exposed to too much hardship and too much of the cruelty that can be part of life. So you go through that, and the education system doesn't definitely does not prepare you for what to expect after you are done studying. So once you're done with all that and you come out into the world, you're no longer a student and you are looking for a career, and that's when you discover how competitive the world is. And the resources are scarce, and the competition is very, very intense. There are lots of people who are all competing for for very small number of whatever it is, seats or jobs or whatever, resources, whatever. And yeah, you find yourself lost, essentially, and you feel that the world is really cruel. I mean, childhood was so nice, and why is the world so evil, so cruel, and so on. So I think almost everybody at some stage of their life goes through this. You feel perhaps depressed, perhaps lost, perhaps disillusioned, disheartened, etc. uh, so what do you do about this? What do you do about this is the question, right? So first of all, you have to understand that the world has always been this way. It's always been this way. The world hasn't changed of late. It's not like in the past 5, 10, 20 years the world has become an inherently more cruel place. It's not. The world has always been this way. It's just that you are now beginning to realize that what it is really like, because you're no longer a student, you're no longer sheltered, you have your own, you have to take care of yourself, etc. So you're beginning to see it now. So the world has always been this way. That's the first thing you have to understand. The second thing you have to understand is that you can deal with this. You can overcome whatever obstacles you're faced with. Look, it's like this: you are the result of millions, not millions, billions of years of evolution. Evolution is about the survival of the fittest. Way more organisms, and see, look, if you go back in history, we all have thousands, hundreds of thousands of ancestors. If you talk about the time span of Homo sapiens, and before that, we have pre human ancestors, and so on. So, each one of your ancestors was able to pass on their genetic material successfully. They were able to successfully compete and thrive, and that's why you exist. So, the genetic material of those who fail in the race of life, of survival of the fittest, it doesn't get passed on. So you have the material, the genetic material of thousands, hundreds of thousands of generations of winners. Okay, so you have it in you. So you should not doubt your ability, your capability to survive, and not only survive but to win and thrive. So that should hopefully give you a little bit of confidence. Now the thing is this: you may feel like you've lost sight of what was your purpose in life. That is very common, especially when you're young and you're thrust into the into the ocean, like the Spartans used to throw their kids into the ocean and sink or swim, that sort of thing. So what should you do? Well, ideally you need to take some time off to reconnect with who you are and what your aspirations in life are. You need to spend some time alone. When you're just running, when you're just studying every day, and you simply don't have time to be alone with yourself, then you simply don't feel, you get the feeling that you've lost connection with who you are, and that's why it feels like you've lost sight of your life's purpose. So maybe you need to take a couple of days off, put away your textbooks, put away your study material, go somewhere. Ideally, go to a national park, a forest, or something. Spend a few hours walking alone, observing nature, observing the butterflies, observing the leopards eating the deers, whatever it is. Be alone in nature. Okay, walk, take a long walk, several hours, and then automatically you will reconnect with who you are. There is nothing more beneficial for a human being than a long walk in nature. Now maybe you don't have access to a national park or a forest or something, then find some other way. Go to the seashore or go somewhere where you have fewer people around you. When you have a million people talking in your ears, you simply, it's a huge problem. You need to, you every human being needs regular periods of solitude and reflection. So I think you need to take a couple of days off, maybe 2 or 3 days off. 2 or 3 days you don't study won't make any big difference. So do that, reconnect with who you are, and you will rediscover what you are here for and what your aspirations are. And your aspirations are your purpose, especially at the age of 23. So that's what you should do. The main thing is be positive, be confident, know that you are the descendant of so many lineages of people who have succeeded. That's why you're here, and you have the genetic ingredients and all that required to succeed in life. It's always good to connect with family and all, but sometimes when you study, when you're a student or whatever, you have to move away from family. So you have to find the reserves of strength from within yourself, and I assure you that you have that. Okay, so yeah, that's part of life. That's part of growing up. You come face to face with the true nature of the world. The Maya, the illusion, the wheel of Maya disappears, and then you see what the world really is. Then I assure you, it's not all cruel. It's not all evil. There's a lot of good in the world too, but you have to discover that. You have to strive to discover it, and essentially, like so many of our ancients said, life is kind of a struggle, and the struggle is what gives you meaning, gives your life meaning. So overall, you got to enjoy the struggle. You got to win. You got to find ways to win and enjoy winning, and you go forward with that. So that's what I would suggest you do. Take some time off, reconnect with yourself, and you will find what it is that you're missing. I wish you the best, sir. Okay, Grave Walker 34 says Prime Minister Modi gave a message to the superpower in his speech that he delivered on the 15th of August. What's my take on it? What is this message? It's a long speech, right? So let's try and see what this message was that the prime minister delivered to the superpower, like you say. So here it is. Here is that particular segment or excerpt of that speech. Here's what it says: Friends, and he's addressing us, the citizens of India. Friends, we are facing countless challenges, both internal as well as external challenges. As we are going to become stronger, as our status rises, challenges are going to multiply. External challenges are going to rise disproportionately. I am well aware of that. However, I want to tell other great powers, our prosperity will not create problems for you. Back when we were prosperous, we did not start wars. We follow the teachings of Lord Buddha. Well, I'm surprised it's Lord Buddha this time, not Mr. Gandhi, but anyway, we follow the teachings of Lord Buddha. We don't believe in wars. So the world should not be worried about India's growth. I want to assure the world you should trust in India's traditions, India's history of thousands of years. Do not think we are going to be a problem for you. Do not scheme against us to make our path to growth more difficult. But still, I want to tell the people of the country we will overcome the challenges, all the challenges thrown at us. We will not stop, we will not tire. We are determined to fulfill the dreams of 1.4 billion Indians. We will win over all ill-intentioned people with our good intentions. So the Prime Minister says very clearly that external challenges are going to rise disproportionately. Now, which are these external challenges? It's clear that, and he's talking about the great powers and superpowers, isn't he? So obviously, he's talking about the United States. The allusion is very, very clear. There is no doubt about what he is talking about. He's talking about the United States, and he's talking about the fact that as India's status is rising, as India becomes stronger, these external challenges are going to multiply and rise disproportionately, and it's already happening. We know that. We know that. So he's sending a message to the US that we, back when we were prosperous, we did not start wars. And now usually Mr. Modi refers to Mr. Gandhi, but this time he's referring to to Gautam Buddha, Lord Buddha, because probably Lord Buddha is a more powerful symbol of non-violence and non-aggression. So Mr. Modi is trying to reassure the United States that we are not going to create problems for you, and we're not going to start wars. Well, yeah, so he's sending a message to the people of India that yes, we are facing this problem. The Americans are trying to meddle everywhere. They're trying to hamper our rise. They're trying to whatever they are doing. I have explained in great detail so many times what the Americans are trying to do with us, with India. They're trying to cut off India's access to the rest of the world and trying to meddle in India's internal affairs, create all kinds of fissures and divisions within the country, exploit those divisions, and just slow India's growth down and reduce India to mediocrity. That's the overall objective that the Americans have. The Americans have a very fundamental approach and envisioned a future for the world. They want either a monopolar, unipolar world or a bipolar world. That is the US and China. They don't even want Russia in the picture. Okay, so the Americans want a monopolar, unipolar, or bipolar world. India wants a multipolar world. It's a fundamental difference in the envisaged future of the world, what we want and what they want. It's a fundamental difference. It is irreconcilable. Do you understand? The US and India have irreconcilable differences. Now, the Americans are way more powerful than us, so they can do whatever they want, essentially. And that's the challenge that India faces. So Mr. Modi, without naming them, has sent a message to them. He has also sent a message to the citizens of India that we are in for a tough time. It is what it is. So that's my take on it. The allusion, it's very clear who he's referring to. He's not referring to China. He talks about multiple powers, right? Right. What's he say? I want to tell other great powers. Well, essentially, he's talking about the US, not really China here. So it's very clear. Mr. Modi understands that we are in for a tough time. We're going to have lots of challenges, growing challenges, mounting challenges that are going to be thrown at us. The Americans are going to interfere in India's internal affairs in a multitude of ways. They have so many assets within India, I assure you of that. They're going to leverage all those assets. They're going to bring all those assets into play. There are assets without India. There are assets within India, much more. So India is going to be in for a tough time. That's for sure. So yeah, that's the message that Prime Minister Modi has given, and he's given this message of resilience, that no matter what happens, we're gonna keep on working and striving to keep on the path that we are destined to be on. That's what. Sonia Kondala Sonia Kondal, sorry, says this year the deep state has activated all its anti-India assets in full force. The Prime Minister's third term is going to be the deciding factor for the future of Bharat. Do you agree? I do agree. Now let me show you something. Okay, I'm going to put something on the screen. Uh, it's a video I had put up quite a while ago. Okay, let's go to the screen. Here we are, and let's go down. This is my YouTube channel. These are the videos that I've put out, and we're talking about um, where is that? It's quite a while ago. It was in the beginning of 2023 that I put this video out, and I'm sure I can play it over here because there's not going to be no copyright strike. It's my own video. I want copyright strike myself. But where is this? One second. Give me a second. We're talking about a year ago. It's been quite a while since I put this out. I think it was part of the Indian Interest podcast. Give me a second. I'm going to dig it out. So I had spoken about this one here, this video. And I want to play it right now. But the title is The West's Pre-2024 Anti-India Propaganda Has Begun. And I put this out on January 26, 2023. I would encourage you all to watch this video or to rewatch this video. Okay, in which I have spoken about what the West's game plan is going to be like. And let me assure you, what you're seeing today is exactly what I had spoken about in January 2023. So watch the video. I'll put out a community post also with the link for the video after this live stream is over. Check it out. And what's happening today is exactly what I had laid out in detail in that particular video. So yes, the deep state, or whatever you want to call it, all its anti-India assets outside of India, within India, have been activated in full force. What they did in Bangladesh in the years before the coup happened, the exact same playbook is being followed in India right now. So it looks like their objective is eventually to have that sort of regime change in India as well. Okay, and there are so many assets they can bring into play. Indian assets which belong to them. So yes, Prime Minister Modi's third term is going to be extremely challenging for him, for the country, for the government, and it probably is going to be the deciding factor for the future of Bharat. If they can bring this regime, the Prime Minister's government down, the Americans, if they can engineer a regime change, then it's essentially very difficult days ahead for India. Okay, so yeah, we are in, like I keep saying, for a tough time ahead. The Prime Minister and his party, they don't have a full majority. They have 240 seats in parliament. The halfway mark is 272, 273. So yeah, big challenge. They should have got the majority. They didn't do it. So now, yeah, it gives the outsiders an opening. And they are past masters at exploiting openings. So it's gonna be tough days ahead for India. Okay, Sun Moon 0877 says, why are the US desperately trying to wipe Hinduism out in Bangladesh and Pakistan? Why do they prefer monotheistic religions or polytheistic religions? What obstacles do they see in Hinduism to proceed with their plan to create a nation? Okay, yeah. So first of all, why is the US trying to wipe out Hinduism in Bangladesh and Pakistan? Well, there is no evidence the US is behind it. There's always a tremendous amount of plausible deniability. We have nothing to do with this. We have nothing to do with this. This was a students' protest. It was a students' protest, and the army turned out to be such a nice thing, pro-democratic. They supported the students' protest, and they made Sheikh Hasina leave, and now the new government has taken over. It's a proper transition of power, and we support it, we welcome it, and the media will black out the entire large scale targeting of Hindus that's happening as we speak right now in Bangladesh. They'll completely blank it out. They'll not report it at all. So then people can say, what's happening? There's nothing in the media. There's nothing in the news. Show me evidence? But the media will stay away from it. They will not record this. They will not run any stories about this. So then we will have no evidence. But the evidence is coming out on social media. All the videos of what's happening, the targeting of Hindus in a variety of ways. Okay, I'll not say anything beyond that. That's happening. So, and again, the Americans will say if there is some violence happening, we condemn it and we have nothing to do with it. Obviously, they still have plausible deniability. Now, they tried that in 1971 as well. We have nothing to do with it. But they were behind the genocide. They were supporting the Pakistani army's genocide in East Pakistan, the Americans. And their own ambassador wrote about this. Read the book, The Blood Telegram. The Americans knew what was happening, and they supported that. So now the question is, why are they, let's say, okay with the targeting of Hindus in East Pakistan, which is the former Bangladesh? Why are they okay with it? And why are they, if they're okay with it, it means they want it, right? Why do they want it? So understand this. As long as there is a sizable Hindu population in Bangladesh or East Pakistan, there's going to be Indian influence there. There is going to be Indian influence in Bangladesh or East Pakistan, as long as there is a sizable Hindu population there. There is almost zero Indian influence in Pakistan today, because the population of Hindus has almost disappeared, right? What, 2%, less than 2%? I don't know what the Hindu population of Pakistan is. So that's why, because there are almost no Hindus left there, that's why India has almost no influence there in Pakistan. And the same goes about Afghanistan. We have a good rapport with the Taliban. That's a different story. But if we had, let's say, 5% Hindus still existing in Afghanistan, then we would have some influence there, right? Let's say Afghanistan was still, let's say, 10% Hindu. We would have influence in Afghanistan. Today, we have nothing. I mean, I think there's zero Hindus left in Afghanistan now. 100 years ago, there was a sizable Hindu population. 1,000 years ago, everybody was Hindu. So that's how we have receded. Our civilizational footprint has receded. So if the Hindus are wiped out in East Pakistan, in Bangladesh, then India's influence decreases to zero. And that's fantastic for the puppet master who's behind the regime change, behind the coup, the US. So that's why they want to wipe out Hinduism. So that's number one. Number two, the question is, why do they prefer monotheistic religions over polytheistic religions? Monotheistic religions are easy to control. It's very easy to control. The entire structure, religious structure, is a military style structure. It's a command and control structure. Okay? So, and monotheistic religions are all about obedience and blind faith. Polytheistic religions are about arguments and not agreeing with each other. It's more democratic. And you will see that people who follow monotheistic religions are very well organized and united. And as you know very well, people who follow polytheistic religions have a diversity and plurality of opinions and paths and worldviews and ways of life. And the Hindus are the best example of that. They simply cannot unite. Hindus, no matter where they are, they simply can't unite. They simply can't organize. They simply can't present a unified front. Never. So who wants to deal with such people? You want to deal with people, a bunch of people who are incredibly easy to control, right? So if you're a shepherd, you will prefer sheep, right? Or let's say a pack of wolves, for example. A pack of wolves also can be controlled. It also has a command and control structure, a pack of wolves. But how about a bunch of cats? Can you herd a bunch of cats? Impossible. So polytheistic people are like a bunch of cats. They simply have their own divergent paths. You simply cannot herd them together. It is just beyond their nature. It's outside of their nature. So the US is an empire. An empire is all about power. And power is about command and control. And that's why they prefer to deal with monotheistic religions, because they're easy to command and control. Polytheists, my goodness, what a headache it is for them, right? Um, so that's the thing. So that's the problem with Hinduism, uh, that it simply doesn't unite. The people aren't united, and that's why the Americans prefer dictatorships, because that's once again very simplified command and control structure. Democracies are a pain. They profess to spread democracy in the world, and support democracy, encourage democracy, but they actually support authoritarian regimes. So their words and actions don't match, never match. But whatever regime they support, they claim it's democratic, like Zelensky. Zelensky is a dictator. Okay, according to the constitution of Ukraine, he should have been out of power. There should have been an election in Ukraine in what, in April, May, June, somewhere around that time. That time is long past gone. Zelensky is in power unconstitutionally, undemocratically, according to the constitution of Ukraine. He's a dictator. Then the Americans support him. They have propped up his regime. So there you have it. So yeah, I hope that answers your questions. Next question, Adarsh Narayan Raut says, what must the Modi government do to protect Hindus from Bangladesh? Recently, many people on the India-Bangladesh border have claimed that they are Hindus, but the BSF, the Border Security Force, the Indian Border Security Force, are not letting them enter India. According to the Indian government, there are very few women and children among them, which is strange. I agree, it's strange. And practically, we cannot give shelter to 1 crore Hindus in India now. Right. Bangladesh has a very large population overall, in total. And I don't know, but 7% of them are Hindus, which is a very large population. At least 10 million, right? So yeah, how can we bring in 10 million people into India? It will overburden our economy, our infrastructure, our state machinery and whatnot, right? So the question then is, what and lots of people are criticizing the Modi government for not allowing Hindus to cross over into India, the Bangladeshi Hindus to cross over into India. So the question is, what should the Modi government do? Should we open the border and allow the Hindus to cross over? And then there's the risk of non-Hindus and anti-India, not about non-Hindus, but about anti-India elements crossing over into India in the guise of Hindus, right? That's always a risk. We've had this problem with Bangladesh for a very long time. So what should the Modi government do? And lots of people are saying, okay, very prominent voices on social media are saying that India needs to allow these Bangladeshi Hindus to enter India so that they can have safe refuge in India. What's my view on this? My view on this is rather different. I suppose it may be an unpopular view. My view is that we should not allow the Bangladeshi Hindus to enter India, but we support them. We give them funds. We give them everything they need to carve out a Hindu region in Bangladesh. Okay, so let's take a look at the map. See, how long are you going to keep running? That's the question. How long will Hindus keep running? We run away from Afghanistan. We run away from Pakistan. We ran away from Central Asia a long, long time ago. We ran away from Xinjiang when the Uyghurs massacred Hindus. We have run away from various parts of the world. We keep running like cowards. You gotta stand and fight for what's yours. Okay. So here's what I would say. Let's take a look at the map. Okay, here's the map on the screen. You have Bangladesh here. So now the government of India should provide every possible assistance to Hindus in Bangladesh to carve out a Hindu nation out of Bangladesh. The Americans are trying to create an artificial Kuki nation, right? Artificial Christian nation out of parts of Burma, Bangladesh, and Manipur and Mizoram, right? Now, the India-Bangladesh border is porous. It's an open border. And we have always been on the receiving end of the porosity of this border. Whether it is the Bangladesh border or the Pakistan border, we have always been at the receiving end. Now, let us demonstrate to the world that a porous border works both ways. We can also do things across the border. So we need to provide every possible assistance to the Bangladeshi Hindus so that they can organize themselves, they can arm themselves, they can ensure that nobody can target them, and they can carve out an independent Hindu nation out of let's say, Western Bangladesh. That's what India needs to do. We should tell our Hindu brothers and sisters in Bangladesh that they need to stand and fight, and we will stand with them, and we will provide them every help they need. But we will not allow them to escape and run into India. Stand and fight, and we'll give you everything you need. That's what the Modi government will do. At some point in time, we're going to give it back. We have been running away long enough. Do you agree, my viewers? Do you agree? Let me see the comments. Okay, I'm not sure if. So basically, that's my view. We need to ensure that a Hindu nation is created out of Bangladesh. And it's not about abandoning the Hindus of Bangladesh. It's about giving them everything they need to fight back and fight for what is theirs. That is their land they are in. They are in their own land, the land of their ancestors, the land they've lived in for thousands of years. Don't give it up. Stand and fight. And the government of India, I urge them to support the Hindus of Bangladesh in this manner, not by helping them run away, but by helping them stand and fight. Malik says, will that not be an open challenge to the US? Yeah, but do it in a way that there is plausible deniability, just the way the Americans do it. The Americans supported Pakistani terrorism in India. They funded and financed Pakistani terrorism in India for decades. And they always said that we have plausible deniability. There is no evidence that we are supporting, and we are simply blah, blah, blah. Whatever. Do the same thing. Do the same thing. You want to play this game, we will also play the game. I know it's dangerous, but you have to take a stand at some point in time. The Americans are trying to break your nation. They're trying to break the Far East of India. They're trying to create an artificial Kukiland out of Manipur and Mizoram and whatnot. And they are trying to create divisions in the country. You got to fight back at some point in your life. So I think that's what the government of India needs to do. That's my perspective. And this has nothing to do with religious conflict, Hindu versus Muslim or whatever. This is just about what should be done. That's it. Okay, Lipton Barua says, I'm a Buddhist and Mag tribe. Okay, my grandparents were from Chittagong. Chittagong was dominated by Buddhists and Hindus. My grandparents wanted to be part of Bharat. How did Chittagong become a part of East Pakistan despite being non-Muslim? Okay, great question. Once again, we go to the map. So here is the map of the subcontinent, more or less. Now we go to the eastern part, Bangladesh. And the eastern part of Bangladesh, the southeast of Bangladesh, is the Chittagong region, Chittagong, Cox's Bazar, etc. And this region overall, see, Bangladesh, which is East Bengal, is definitely a Muslim majority region. And the partition of India, the partition of Bharat, was done by outside forces, by the British, on the basis of religion. And there was this guy called Cyril Radcliffe, who arbitrarily drew a line called the Radcliffe Line, which became the border between India and this new artificial nation of Pakistan. Okay? So Cyril Radcliffe drew the line in the way you see it on the map right now. And if this entire exercise was based on religion, then Chittagong, this entire Chittagong hill tract region should have been part of Bharat, should have been part of India. Even places like Sylhet, etc., should have been part of India. They should not have been part of Bangladesh. Even Rangpur, etc., these regions, Rajshahi, etc., should have been part of India. But the British artificially made all of these regions part of East Pakistan. Why did they do that? The Pakistan, East Pakistan, West Pakistan, Pakistan overall, this artificial nation, was a geopolitical project. And the objective of the project was to further the British imperial and colonial interests in the region. Now, I'll not go into the exact details of what those interests were and all that, but they wanted this nation. Okay? And they wanted this nation to be self-sustaining, and it should last for a long time. It should be able to sustain itself. So, one of the most important things East Pakistan needed was a large port. And Chittagong or Chattogram is a very big port. It's a major port. Even Cox's Bazar is a reasonably good port. And there are no other ports of any significant stature in East Pakistan. And that's why, despite Chittagong being a non-Muslim majority region, it was forcibly made part of East Pakistan because it has this strategically important port. That's the reason why it was done. And our so-called wonderful, magnificent founding fathers, Mr. Nehru, Mr. Gandhi, etc., they allowed this to happen. They did not raise their voice. They did not put their foot down and said that this will not happen. If you're doing it on the basis of religion, then Chittagong should be part of India. It should have been part of India. So it was done because Chittagong is a very important, very strategically located port. It was vital for East Pakistan to have this port. And it also ensured that the far east of India was cut off from the Bay of Bengal, from the Indian Ocean. So it served multiple purposes. It gave East Pakistan a very major, strategically important port. It also cut off the far east of India's access to the sea. It kills two birds with one stone. That's what the British achieved by making Chittagong part of East Pakistan. That's the deal. Okay? So, that's how it was done. And our wonderful freedom fighters, founding fathers, like some people call them, they allowed this to happen. Show me a news report of Mr. Gandhi, Mr. Nehru, etc., putting up a vigorous protest against this. Show me. I'll wait. Next question. Okay. A couple of questions. I've had definitely more, but I've taken two as representative questions for this topic. Murali and Sudeep Kumar Roy ask, first of all, will Kukiland form in the next year? Second, can India withstand Kuki terrorism in the northeast, the far east, or will India succumb to US tactics? What will be India's strategy in the far east to control US breaking India activities, essentially? Yeah, so let's once again go to the map. Firstly, will Kukiland form in the next year? I think Kukiland is already in the process of formation. Kukiland is already in the process of formation. There is a tremendous civil war raging in Burma. The Burmese government, the army, the junta, is not in control of more than half the country. It is in control in less than half the country today. And the parts of Burma that are east of Manipur, Nagaland, and Mizoram, they are essentially more or less rebel controlled. Who are these rebels? Kukis. So you already have a de facto Kukiland east, right east of Manipur, Mizoram, and parts of Nagaland, and also Bangladesh, east of Chittagong. So you already have a Kukiland which is being formed right now. And when it comes to Manipur, for example, the southern half of Manipur is under Kuki occupation. It is already under Kuki occupation. Okay, they are doing deforestation, they are farming, they're planting poppies, they're growing drugs, they're killing endangered animals. The Indian government is able to do nothing right now. This is a fact. Okay, there is this very famous endangered species of deer in Manipur called the Sangai deer. Okay, the Sangai deer. It's an endangered animal. It is a protected animal. These Kuki infiltrators are shooting and eating this animal. A highly endangered, critically endangered animal. So the government of India has kind of right now, for the time being, kind of lost control of the southern half of Manipur. Churachandpur, this region that was ethnically cleansed of the Hindus, the Kukis are ruling the roost over there. So there is a big problem there. When it comes to Mizoram, I will not speak about Mizoram. The less I speak about Mizoram, the better as of right now. Okay. So there are big challenges up for India. Kukiland is already being formed. It will not be an officially recognized nation in the United Nations. It will be an artificial temporary nation which will be de facto sovereign, but it will be de facto controlled by the US. Okay, Baptist missionaries all over the place. That's what's going to be there. Now, what will be the source of revenue for Kukiland? Well, when the Mujahideen were fighting the Soviets in Afghanistan, what was their main chief source of revenue? Poppy plantations, opium plantations, drugs, hard drugs. And the exact same thing is happening in Kukiland. Okay, Manipur is overrun by these drug mafias. There are poppy plantations all over the place. So there you have it. It's already happening. And when the new port comes up, the American base in Saint Martin's Island, or whatever it's called, Saint Martin's Island, then they will facilitate the drug trade from here. They'll facilitate the export of these cookie made narcotics all across the world, so that the cookie government gets the cookie forces, they get a stable source of revenue. Already happening. So what can India do about all this? It's already happening. It is already happening. So what can India do about this? The first thing India needs to do, and it's going to take time. That's why I keep saying this is going to take time. The first thing India needs to do is to seal the entire border with Burma, fence it off. And it sounds very easy, but take a look at the topology of the terrain here, the topography of the terrain. Okay, this is More Tamu. Look at the entire terrain. It's hills and forests, hills and forests. It's hills and forests. It's incredibly difficult to do anything, to fence this region. You see, there is this artificial cookie village here. They've deforested the land all over the place. You will see this. You will see this all over the place. Anyway, I'll not go into that. But the point is, India needs to first of all seal off the border, fence the entire border. India needs to increase its military presence in the region. And I'm not talking about paramilitary forces like Assam Rifles. I'm talking about the actual Indian military. The same situation you have with at the border with Pakistan and China. We're going to have to do the same thing over here. And that's going to cause its own set of problems, which I'll not go into. Okay? Because the armed forces will also be targeted. The same way they are targeted by the Pakistanis. The same thing will happen. So this process of fencing the border, the entire border, how long is the border? Let's take a very rough estimate. It's hundreds of kilometers long. It's going to be very difficult to do it. It needs to be done. They're going to create border roads all along the border. It's going to be a long time. It will take minimum 10 to 20 years to do this. And once the border is sealed off, fenced off, and no more illegal infiltrators can cross over, then you need to do a proper survey of all the illegals who are within Manipur, within Mizoram, and other parts of India. They need to be identified, they need to be interned, and they need to be deported. That is also going to take a long time. It's the long, drawn out process that we have in front of us. The first thing that needs to be done is to seal the border. That's the first thing. That's the first step. Without that, nothing will happen. Without that, nothing will happen whatsoever. And then you cut off the funding to these US-funded organizations in the far east of India. These are typically religious organizations, whether it's in Manipur, whether it's in Nagaland, whether it's in Mizoram. Cut off the foreign funding to these organizations. Needs to be done. These religious organizations, the church is running the show over here. Okay. And Mr. Nehru is the architect of this. Mr. Nehru ensured that US missionaries run riot across the far east of India and convert the locals, the indigenous people, on an industrial scale, which resulted in a complete eradication of the beautiful local culture. That's what's happened. So Kukiland is already being formed. It is currently under formation. It's a very difficult and dangerous time for India, in the far east of India. It is a very, very tough time for the indigenous people of Manipur. And it's going to be a long journey ahead, minimum 20 years. But India needs to start acting right now. Start fencing of the border. It's going to take time, but start now. That's what India needs to do. Okay, Sunmoon 0877 and Harshal Agarwal 922 say, what's the reason for muizzu? Mr. Muizzu, the leader of the Maldives, who went from saying India out to India in. And did the Maldives give India 28 islands, or is it fake news? If it's true, then what made them gift islands, just like our magnificent Shri Pandit Ji, Shri Nehru Ji? So, first of all, what happened is that our foreign minister, Dr. Jaishankar, was in the Maldives about a week or so ago. Okay, on an official visit to the Maldives, and India and the Maldives signed a whole bunch of agreements, and a lot of projects of various kinds are going to be undertaken by India. So, for example, India is going to be undertaking the project of constructing sewage systems on 28 islands in the Maldives. So the Maldives is not handing over 28 islands to India. It has signed projects with India. So it's handed projects to India for various sewage system construction, etc., on 28 islands. So that's fake news that they have given 28 islands to India. We will be doing projects on these 28 islands. That's number one. Okay, so that takes care of that second question, the one by Herschel. Um, Now the question is, what happened? What on earth is going on in the Maldives? What on earth is happening in the Maldives? Mr. Muizzu was rabidly anti-India, wasn't he? He has been running this anti what India out campaign for years. And the moment he comes to power, he says, oh, the Indian uh, military personnel who have this handful of Indian military personnel who were there, they had to leave the country and so on and so forth. So what happened suddenly? Why this sudden U-turn? They asked India to leave to leave and not continue any of the projects India was doing there, and suddenly they're signing agreements with India for many more projects and whatnot. What is happening is the question. What is happening? So once again, let's go to the map to understand where the Maldives is. It is an extension of the Lakshadweep archipelago, and this is the Maldives. Very pretty set of islands. Uh, the people obviously are of Indian origin, and so on. So understand this, my friends. The Maldives are, whether you like it or not, the fact is that the Maldives are today a Chinese proxy. So India is surrounded by foreign proxies. Okay, Pakistan is a US proxy, Afghanistan is a US proxy, uh, Burma is under civil war. It will soon be a US proxy. Kukiland, Bangladesh is a US proxy. Sri Lanka, you can say, is kind of a US proxy. Nepal, unfortunately, is a Chinese proxy, and so on. Everybody around India is a proxy. India is the only sovereign nation left. So Maldives is today a Chinese proxy. Okay, the pro-India government lost the elections, and Mr. Muizzu came to power, and he is very strongly pro-China. His first foreign visit was to China. He met with Mr. Xi Jinping and so on. So now the question is, now it becomes even stranger. Why is a strongly pro-China government signing all these deals with India, agreements with India, and handing over so many projects to India? What on earth happened? Why this incredible U-turn? That is the question. Now, the answer to that question could perhaps lie in a tweet that I put out a few days ago. Here's the tweet. I put this tweet out on the 13th of August. Today is what? 18th of August, 5 days ago. I said the Americans are going to achieve the unthinkable. They are going to drive India and China into the same camp. That's what I said a few days ago. And you're kind of beginning to see that. So a very strongly pro-China government in Maldives is now making amends with India, making friends with India. Okay, there are no coincidences in geopolitics. Nothing happens without a reason. If you if you see the Chinese embassy's Twitter account of late, they have been extremely generous in their tweets about India, extremely positive tweets about India. If you see the Global Times, which used to be, I have covered that in the past, the Global Times and the tweets it puts out and the stories and the analysis it puts out. It's a Chinese propaganda outlet, the Global Times. So if you look at the Global Times articles about India in the past few weeks, they are all positive. Something is changing in the world. And essentially, the Americans may be taking it too far, and they may end up actually achieving the unthinkable. They may actually push India and China into the same camp. It doesn't mean that India and China are going to be friends. Okay, it doesn't mean that. You still got to be very careful about the Chinese. But out of necessity, it looks like India and China may have to make up. And well, let's see how that goes. But you are seeing signs of that. A very strongly pro-China government in the Maldives is now making friendly overtures to India. Very, very drastic shift from its policy just a few months ago. So we are seeing that. We are seeing a significant shift in the region, in the India-China relationship. Very rapid geopolitical change this year and this decade, like I've said before. Okay, Mazhar Chachar says Pakistan's former ISI chief Faiz Hamid, Lieutenant General Faiz Hamid, was recently arrested on corruption charges. What do you believe are the real reasons behind his arrest? Do you think this development will impact the military as an institution and potentially create divisions within it? Yeah, interesting news. Lieutenant General Faiz Hamid, I hope I'm getting the rank right. He has been arrested. Uh, and he was a very powerful man until recently. I remember when Kabul fell to the Taliban, he was in a hotel in Kabul sipping chai and making all kinds of grandiose statements. And the people at the time were interpreting this as a victory for the ISI, for Pakistan. That the ISI has won, Pakistan has won, and they will now take over Afghanistan. Turns out it wasn't the case. But so that's the guy, Lieutenant General Faiz Hamid. He has now been arrested on corruption charges. And I haven't gone into the details of what charges are there against him. The question, like Mazhar asks, is what are the real reasons behind this? So generally, you will find that the army always takes care, in Pakistan, the Pakistani army, the Pakistani military, always takes care of its men. Okay? They never go against their own people. So what happened here? Why have they arrested this guy? That's the question. Now, to understand that, go back a couple of years. Until 2022, first quarter of the year, Mr. Imran Khan was the Prime Minister of Pakistan, wasn't he? And then he was deposed in a coup. And Mr. Imran Khan was deposed in a coup because he was very strongly pro-China. And the Americans intervened and they got him out. And now there is a very strongly pro-US government in power in Pakistan. The prime minister obviously is just a puppet. The real power is in the hands of the military, and the military is now very strongly pro-US, and they pay homage to the US. They visit Washington D.C., Langley, etc., and they meet with the US defense establishment and so on. Their top brass, etc. So it's known to happen. Yeah. So the Pakistani military is now firmly in the lap of the US, of the superpower, no longer with China, and that was signaled by the ousting of Mr. Imran Khan. Now, who was Mr. Imran Khan's right-hand man in the Pakistani military? Well, there you have it. Lieutenant General Faiz Hamid. He was Imran Khan's confidant, so to say. He was Imran Khan's best friend, so to say. And he was his, main man in the Pakistani military. So, now that things are being put in place in the Indian subcontinent, Bangladesh has been taken care of by the Americans. So they also want to consolidate their hold on Pakistan. And one of the ways of doing it is to weed out or purge, like the Chinese say, all potentially anti-US elements. So Mr. Faiz, Lieutenant General Faiz, may not have been anti-US, but he was pro-China, wasn't he? Well, he and Mr. Imran Khan were pro-China. So he is being taken out. And I'm sure there's going to be a deeper purge within, not just Faiz Hamid, but many other people will be targeted in this. This is called a purge in the communist lingo. The communist terminology for this sort of event is a purge. So there's a purge that's ongoing in the Pakistani military establishment. And I can't assure you, but I'm pretty certain it's being done at the behest of the US. Clean up your ranks. Get rid of anybody who could potentially be anti-US or who has an anti-US track record or pro-China track record. So there's a lot more beyond what I am saying in this. I'm sure there's a very complicated tangled web of things, but overall, he was Mr. Imran Khan's right-hand man. He was his confidant, best friend, whatever you want to call it. And he was pro-China. And because of his association with Imran Khan, who has been purged, he's also being purged. So that's probably what is happening in Pakistan. Okay, another question by Mazhar Chachar. I recently watched a video on YouTube where a Vedic astrologer predicted that Pakistan might no longer exist in its current form by the years 2027-28. Given the current political instability, economic crisis, and internal divisions within the military in Pakistan, how do you view this prediction? As a geopolitical analyst, do you believe Pakistan is heading in that direction? Okay, so I know nothing about astrology, Vedic astrology, so I can't comment. I can't possibly comment about that. Now, what's the possibility? What's the likelihood? What's the probability that Pakistan may break up by the year 27-28? Given that that's about 3 or 4 years from now, we are in the year 2024. Well, see, Pakistan, I will tell you, will exist as long as the US needs it to exist. Okay, map, where's the map? Here's the map. So, Pakistan is a very important client state, puppet state of the US. And Bangladesh or East Pakistan is a newly minted client state, puppet state, vassal of the US. So the US has two vassals on India's eastern and western borders, Pakistan and East Pakistan or Bangladesh. Now, these nations, from the US perspective, are very important. They are vital for keeping India under check, keeping India counterbalanced, off balance. So Pakistan is very important. And as long as the Americans need Pakistan to exist, it will keep on existing because they will keep on supporting it. And they're really good at this. They're really good at propping up client states, puppet dictatorships, or vassals. They're really good at that. So Pakistan will exist as long as the Americans need it to exist. And so I don't see it breaking up anytime soon. Okay. But you never know. Something may happen. Something completely unforeseen may happen, and things may move in a certain direction. But overall, it looks like the Americans are going to be targeting India with the objective of arresting India's growth, or delaying India's growth as long as possible, next 10-20 years. So maybe they need Pakistan to exist for at least 10-20 years in that case. So yeah, it's very hard to make any predictions. Uh, so I won't venture and make a prediction, but I think it is less likely that Pakistan will break up or no longer exist in its current form by the year 27-28. Pakistan most likely may continue to exist in its current form beyond 27-28. That's what I think. Maybe I'm wrong, but who knows? Okay, Sun Moon 0877 says, when will the US Big Daddy empire fall? If the US empire falls, will Russia be the next superpower? Where do you see Bharat's position 100 years from now? Look, there's a lot of talk about US decline and so on. I disagree. The US may be declining as a society. Its values and morals and ethics may be declining. The quality of its people may be declining. Okay. Its education system may be declining. Its economy, or the domestic economy, inflation, etc., may be in bad shape. Okay. There may be all kinds of divisions within the country. Lack of trust. It's now a low trust society. There is more homelessness, more crime, all kinds of problems. So internally, the US society is in decline. Sure, I agree. But as an empire, what are the characteristics of an empire? It's hard power, its military strength, its economic strength, its power projection capabilities. I promise you, I assure you, the US has never been more powerful than it is today. I think the US is at the peak of its hard power. It has military power projection capabilities globally. It can intervene militarily at 30 minutes notice anywhere on the planet. It can annihilate and flatten any nation it wants. I promise you that. It can do that momentarily if it wants. So, from that perspective, the US is very far away from falling or declining. Its hard power is actually rising. Okay. Yeah, economically, there could be some concerns about the long-term viability of the US dollar, etc. But I'm sure they can handle that as well. I'm sure they have a plan for that as well. So I don't see this empire falling anytime soon, unless it falls from within. So if you look at the history of great empires, whether it's the Roman Empire, whether it's the Mauryan Empire, whether it is the Persian Empire, or whichever empire you want to talk about, okay, these empires, they always fall because of internal problems within, that weaken that empire from inside out. And that typically manifests itself in a variety of ways in the nation's society, and the quality of its military architecture, of its decision making process, of the government bureaucracy and machinery, etc. So that's where the decline becomes apparent. Right now, the decline is apparent in the US society only, not overall in their military machine. Of course, there are certain ideologies that are creeping into the US military, which may precipitate a decline in standards. Uh, if that happens, it could fall unexpectedly. But I don't see it falling anytime soon. I think the US primacy, supremacy of the world, hegemony of the world will last for the foreseeable future, maybe at least until 2050. I think it's too early to start talking about the fall of the US empire. Uh, and with the advent of technologies like AI, etc., quantum computing, and so on, they could end up ruling for another 200 years. Who knows? Who knows? You never know. So I think it's too early to start speculating about when the US empire will fall. I think it's extraordinarily powerful. It's the most powerful empire that has ever existed in the history of humankind. And it's right now at the peak of its hard power strength. Okay. So yeah, that's where we are. Now, if the US empire does fall for whatever reason, who's going to be the next superpower? Probably it'll be Russia or maybe China. The Russians have an unmatchable nuclear arsenal. The Chinese can't catch up with that. But the Chinese have probably the world's largest navy in terms of numbers, numerically largest navy. And they have probably better technology. And also, then if the US empire falls for whatever reason, it's going to be a straight fight between China and Russia. And that's when these two nations will become hostile towards each other. So I've always said this, that China and Russia are long term adversaries, not partners. And in the advent of, in the event of something like the US empire's unlikely fall, the hostility between the two nations, China and Russia, will come out in the open almost instantly. Where do I see Bharat's position 100 years from now? I think by 2100, if we really play our cards right, we could be the world's largest economy. Okay? If we don't get caught up in bad luck, and if everything works out fine, if we don't get embroiled in any major military conflict, and we're able to withstand the US pressure on us and other pressures on us, so in the best case scenario, we are the world's largest economy by 2100. So that I'm an optimistic person, and that's where I see it going. And if we are the world's largest economy by 2100, we will also be the largest military. So, yeah. And hopefully, we will have by that time learned the lessons of the past 1000 years. So, we're going to be a whole different beast if that happens. If we do end up becoming the world's largest economy, that's a long time away from now. So, you don't know. Okay, two questions about Kursk. Geopolitical Dubey and Mohammed Ismail. Is it true that Ukraine captured some Russian controlled territory? What's the current situation in the Ukraine? And what developments are occurring in Russia's Kursk region? And for what factors have led to the vulnerability of Russia's border with Ukraine? Could this be attributed to shortcomings within the Russian military or possibly to corruption? Okay, let's take a look at the map. What's going on? So here we are in Ukraine, and east of Ukraine, you have in the northeast of Ukraine, off the northeast border of Ukraine, you have Kursk Oblast, Kursk region, let's say Kursk district or whatever you want to call it. So this is where the Ukrainian military has made an incursion. It's not an invasion; it's an incursion. It's like a limited entry into Russian territory. So they made good progress and they captured a sizable amount of territory, and now they are being pounded and driven back. So what does this mean? Could this be attributed to shortcomings in the Russian military or corruption? I don't know about corruption, but definitely it looks like the Russians were kind of caught off guard. They probably did not expect this to happen. Maybe the Americans or NATO supplied Ukraine with whatever weaponry they needed and all that, and they were able to make a brief incursion into the region. But now they are being driven back, and the Russians will prevail. The Russians have a much more capable military. They have essentially extremely deep stocks of arms and ammunition. The Ukrainians don't have that, and the Russians have much more manpower. So the Russians are going to eventually prevail in this matter, and things will go back on track the way they were. So that's the current situation in Ukraine. Uh, Overall, it's been a very slow, very long war kind of scenario, frozen conflict kind of scenario. The Russians are willing to wait as long as they need. They are in no hurry, but their eventual long-term objective is the denazification of Ukraine, regime change in Kiev, a pro-Russia regime in Kiev, and the permanent neutralization of Ukraine, in the sense that Ukraine becomes permanently neutral, neither pro-West nor pro-Russia, just neutral. So that's what the Russians want, and that's what they will achieve unless NATO can spring a genuine surprise. So, look, the Russian border with Ukraine is extremely large, and it's not fenced off. It's not I mean, it is demarcated, but it is not fenced off. So it is possible uh, for a sufficiently well armed force to make a surprise attack and make an incursion. Obviously, there's going to be an investigation in Russia as to how this was allowed to happen, blah blah blah, and so on. But overall, Russia is kind of doing fine. That's what I can say. I can't possibly comment about any possible corruption, etc., in the Russian military. I have no information about that. Shortcomings, certainly there could be some shortcomings, which the Russians would want to address, I suppose. Yep. Okay, Malik Said says, would we see a monotheism versus polytheism conflict soon in geopolitics? Because one would observe patterns realigning in that way in the world order. Basically, Abrahamic religions versus Dharmic religions or Eastern religions. Well, the past 1500 or so years, it's been that sort of thing. It's been monotheistic religions versus polytheistic religions, Abrahamic religions versus Eastern religions, so to say, or old religions. So, for example, if you go to the map of Europe, you had, you know, so when it comes to the Eastern Roman Empire, the Byzantine Empire, which was based out of Constantinople, which is currently Istanbul, uh, this empire became officially Christian sometime in the 4th or so century AD. You can look up the exact date when it was. Emperor Constantine made Christianity the official religion, and then there was large-scale persecution of non-Christians, people who believed in the old gods, the old religion, in the region, all the way up to Egypt, Alexandria, etc. Because all of that was part of the extended empire at various points in time, and then Christianity became the official religion of the Roman Eastern Roman Empire, the Vatican, and so on. And then there was a Christian conquest of Europe, and that was pretty brutal. That was pretty brutal. And where's the book? I don't know. I don't know where it is, but I have this book by Catherine Nixie, called The Darkening Age, in which she speaks about the Christian destruction of the old religion and old way of life. So if you go to Greece today, you will see all these old monuments, old statues, and you will see that every single one of these statues, the old statues of the old Greek gods, each one of these statues is defaced. Broken faces, broken arms, broken legs, broken breasts, whatever. Right? So there was this systematic destruction of the old polytheistic religion and the culture. And most wars in those days of conquest were obviously fought for plunder and territory and all that, but they were fought in the name of religion. So these were wars for Christianity, wars for conquest, for Christianity, for the glory of Christ. And with the advent of Islam, a similar thing happened. Most of these wars were jihads. There's no controversy about that, and they were fought in the name of Islam, right? So it for the past 1500 plus years, it's been that way: monotheism versus polytheism, and monotheism has been the dominant force in the world because of its uniquely militaristic structure, the command and control structure that monotheistic religions and societies have. Uh, So that's been that way. But now, of late, the West has been espousing democracy and all that, and secularism. So they cannot portray their conquests today as conquests of religion. But there is no secret about the fact that they prefer monotheism, and they don't understand polytheism. And polytheism is problematic because it is hard to control and hard to control such a society, hard to unify such a society. Monotheistic societies are very easy to control. So overall, it's going to be like that. It's been like that the past 1500 plus years. The 1000 years in the past millennium, during which India was occupied first by the Turks and then by the Europeans, mainly that was occupation in the name of religion. Of course, the Europeans, they came to trade, but then they found that India was weak at the time, so they took over. But there was a religious angle to that as well. When it comes to the Turkic occupation of India, it was pretty much straightforward, a religious war. So yeah, that's what you have, and so geopolitics has multiple levels. You have what's visible, and then there are these implied subcurrents in what happens, and there is obviously a religious angle as well. So the Americans, they use whatever means they have at their disposal. When it comes to India's far east, northeast, they have been using religion very successfully. Baptist missionaries running riot across the far east of India, converting people on an industrial scale, and compromising the security, safety, etc., integrity of India. That's been happening for a long time. So religion is very much a factor in essentially everything. Look at what's happened the past 5, 6, 7 decades in South Korea, for example. Okay, South Korea, most people today identify either as atheists or Christians. The Buddhists have become a minority in South Korea. And a similar thing could be happening in Japan. Most people identify as atheists now. So wherever the Americans have a footprint, look at what happened in the Philippines. Okay, the Americans aren't responsible for the Christianization of the Philippines. It's the Spanish who did that. But you see that everywhere. So yeah, and religion is used as a means of controlling foreign countries. So it's going to be that way, yes. Rodrajit Sarkar always asks great questions. So recently I was searching on the internet for some major events in the Cold War era. There were mentions of the Berlin airlift, the Yom Kippur War, the Prague Spring, the Suez Crisis, the Bay of Pigs invasion, Cuban Missile Crisis, Korean War, Vietnam War, etc. in all these websites. But there were very few mentions, very less mentions of the Sino-Indian War or the Indo-Pakistan Wars of 71 or this 1971 Bangladesh Liberation War. Why is that? Well, I think it's a good wake-up call for Indians. It tells you that India was not important in the 20th century during the Cold War era. India did not matter. India was an insignificant nation. If India went to war with China, it was a small local regional war. No one cared. It was a big event for India. For the rest of the world, they didn't care. It did not matter. It did not affect the rest of the world. If India and Pakistan fought 65, 48, 65, 71, 97, 98, whichever year it was, didn't matter. The rest of the world didn't care. It did not affect or impact the rest of the world. Nice effect. So yeah, that's why you see India was not that important at the time. India is somewhat more important today, but at the time no one cared. So if India went to war with Pakistan or China or whatever, it did not make much of a difference to the rest of the world. And that's why those are not the big events of the Cold War era. The Bay of Pigs invasion was kind of a turning point in the Cold War. It failed because John F. Kennedy refused to provide air support or whatever to the invading forces, and that is allegedly what led to what happened in 1963, the JFK assassination. Okay, apparently a lone gunman from the back. What absolute nonsense! Warren Commission report or whatever it was. Okay, I digress. So India wasn't that important. That's why no one speaks about it, right? Rodriguez Sarkar again says, can you tell us something about Charles de Gaulle, the great French leader of the 20th century? Who was this guy? Charles de Gaulle. So he is one of the colossal figures, the colossal figure of 20th century France, essentially. So who was this guy and why is he so important? So Charles de Gaulle was born in the late 19th century in France, and he came from a religious Catholic family, patriotic family. He attended a religious school, apparently Jesuit school or something, and he joined the military and he fought in the First World War. The First World War was between 1914 and 1918, 1919, whichever year it was. So Charles de Gaulle was a junior military officer in the First World War. He was captured in the Battle of Verdun, I believe, captured by the Germans, and he spent the rest of the war, the remainder of the war, as a prisoner of war in Germany. So he was in captivity in Germany after 1916 until the end of the war, of the First World War. So then the First World War ends, and Germany is humiliated horribly. And obviously, Charles de Gaulle is released, and he continues his military career. He was a teacher, a professor at the École Militaire, the military school in France. He wrote several books, military strategy, etc. during this time period. And then you had the Second World War. Second World War starts in what, 1939, somewhere around that. So around that time, he gets a promotion. He's promoted to what, general, brigadier, something like that. And he sees a lot of action in the Second World War. Germany invades France. Obviously, Germany occupies France. So France is defeated, and Germany occupies France. And Charles de Gaulle, he fled to London. He crossed the English Channel, fled to London, and from there he organized the French resistance against Nazi Germany. And once the French, once France was liberated from Germany, he came back to France, and he headed the French government, the French provisional government, after 1944, I think. And then there were problems and disagreements, political disagreements. So he resigned a couple of years after that. And then eventually he returned to power during the Algerian War. There was this Algerian war between France and Algeria. It was the War of Algerian Independence, 1950s, 1960s. It ended sometime in the early 60s, 61, 62. It started sometime in the 1950s. I don't know which year, 55, 54. Look it up. Okay, I don't remember all the exact dates. So Charles de Gaulle came back to power. He returned to politics during this war, the Algerian Independence War. He became the prime minister. He created the Fifth Republic. It came with a new constitution and so on. He becomes the first president, and he served as president for a decade. He oversaw the independence of Algeria, and he was a proponent of a very strong foreign policy. He chafed at France being under the boots of NATO. France was a part of NATO. And NATO, what was NATO? NATO was the US occupation of Western Europe. So after the Second World War, the US decided that the best course of action was for America to stay in Europe, not leave Europe. Okay? And they formed NATO, and France becomes a part of NATO, and that was that you have to give up some of your sovereignty to NATO. So Charles de Gaulle, he was a strong advocate for a strong and independent France, and he withdrew France from NATO's military command in the 60s, 1960s. And he actually wanted good relations with the Soviet Union. And he also opposed American dominance in the world. So that's how it happened. And eventually he resigned as president in the late 60s. And a year or so later, he died. So he is remembered as this great French leader, statesman, a towering figure in French history. He was a great soldier. He fought in two world wars, and he is kind of one of the architects who shaped the modern day France. So that is Charles de Gaulle. Gaulle means the pre-Christian France. It was called Gaulle. It was the Celtic France. So Charles de Gaulle means Charles of Gaulle. And Gaulle is, like I said, the ancient name of France. And his political ideas, policies, ideology is called Gaullism. Okay, so that is in brief about Monsieur Charles de Gaulle, a great man of France. So it's good to get a few questions that I haven't answered before. I don't think I've spoken about Charles de Gaulle before. So there you have it. Let's take another question that I probably may not have answered before. Again by Rodrajit Sarkar. Can you tell us something about the Saur revolution? Why did it happen? And how did India and Pakistan react to this development? So the Saur revolution was a revolution that happened in Afghanistan, in Gandhar. It happened, I believe, in 1978, right? Uh, April 1978. And that month is called Saur, Sawr or Saur in in Afghanistan. Okay, so this was the Saur revolution was essentially a communist revolution. It was a coup d'etat that happened in April 1978. Excuse me. And it led to the overthrow of the government of the then president Mohammed Daoud Khan in Afghanistan. And this coup d'etat brought to power a Marxist communist party in Afghanistan, the People's Democratic Party of Afghanistan, PDPA. Yes, that was the Saur Revolution. So why did this happen? Why did the Saur Revolution happen? It happened because this guy Daud Khan had very strong, had a very apparently authoritarian regime, and there were economic problems and social inequalities, and there was a strong influence of communist ideology apparently in the military and in this party, and there were political tensions between Daud Khan and this political party, the PDPA, and Daud Khan arrested several important or key PDPA leaders, and this is what triggered the coup. Okay, that's what happened. So Daud Khan was overthrown. The PDPA comes to power, and some leader, I forget the name. Okay, he becomes the president after the revolution. And there are a couple of guys whose names I cannot remember right now, who become president one after the other. So the objective of this party was to establish a Marxist, communist government in Afghanistan and to implement socialist reforms, land redistribution, educational stages, changes, modernization of Afghanistan, reduce the influence of tribal leaders, religious leaders, and so on and so forth. So what this did, okay, is that a communist government came to power. They initiated very strong radical reforms in Afghanistan, imposed those reforms on the Afghanistan people, population. And the Afghan society at the time was very conservative, very traditional. So these reforms were highly unpopular. And because of that, there was a lot of resistance, there was a lot of unrest, especially among the Islamic fundamentalist groups in Afghanistan. And that led to to a kind of civil war kind of situation. And the PDPA government came under a lot of pressure and stress. And the USSR became concerned. Let's go to the map. Why haven't I shown the map? So, north of Afghanistan, you have Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, all that, which was then part of the USSR. So, because the government, PDP, government came under stress, the USSR became concerned, and that's why the USSR launched an invasion of Afghanistan. And that led to the Afghan civil war. The Americans got involved because they did not want the USSR to have a new stronghold in the region. And that went on for years and years until the late 1980s. Eventually, the PDPA government was overthrown. Mohammed Najibullah had to go and take refuge in the consulate in the Vatican consulate, I believe, in was it Kandahar? And eventually, the the Mujahideen captured him and did what they did to him. Long story short, so that was a Saur revolution. That is what triggered the Soviet invasion eventually of Afghanistan. Animish 6245 says, what makes the Jews so firm and aggressive while us Hindus are so docile and forgiving? Both of the communities experience the same atrocities and ethnic cleansing for centuries. What makes one different from the other? Well, the first difference is the difference between monotheism and polytheism. Jewish people are a monotheistic culture, monotheistic people. Hinduism is a wildly polytheistic culture. Very different, extremely different. Like they say, difference between heaven and earth. It's incredible difference. So fundamentally different societies, first of all, okay? There is that. then I think the Jews have been much smarter than the Hindus, and they understand the benefit of sticking together as a culture, as a people. Um, and yeah, I think these are the two fundamental differences. They have been much smarter than Hindus. They have stuck together. They have always been united. Um, Hindus are never united, despite having a nation. It's not a Hindu nation. Uh, the Jewish people have a Jewish nation, and they have interests all across the world. And because of their strong political unity, etc., they can get things done in other countries as well. So it is something that is very admirable, I would say, what the Jewish people have achieved despite facing so many struggles, obstacles, challenges, all kinds of atrocities for 2000 plus years. But they've survived and endured, and that's something I suppose Hindus can learn from the Jewish people, right? Dungar Singh Chauhan says, what are your thoughts about the recent outbreak of monkeypox? And why is Africa so regular in gifting these deadly viruses to the world? Um, okay, first of all, let's talk about Africa and viruses. There's a lot of viruses that have actually, truthfully, you're right, lots of, I would not say interesting viruses. From a scientific perspective, it's interesting. But yeah, lots of deadly viruses have emerged out of various parts of Africa. Congo, what's that cave called? I forget the cave. I've read the book about that. There's the Marburg virus, there is the Ebola virus, and there are various other viruses, West Nile virus. Ebola is frightening, very high mortality rate, and so on. Lots of weird and extremely deadly, virulent viruses emerge out of Africa. Also, China. Let's not forget China. The recent events were all China, aren't they? Wuhan. Um, and now there is the WHO is talking about this new outbreak, and they are classifying it as something of extreme concern, I believe. Monkeypox. Now, monkeypox is it's a viral thing, I think, and uh, it has symptoms similar to measles or chickenpox or something, but I'm not sure. I've not read it up actually, so I would not don't take this as medical advice at all. Okay, so what are my thoughts? I think it's concerning. I hope it doesn't become a new pandemic. That's the last thing we need in the world. I think those 2 or 3 lost years were enough. We never want to see that again. I'm obviously talking about the coronavirus pandemic, the Wuhan virus pandemic. So we never want to see that sort of thing again. I hope that if it is genuinely an outbreak of concern, it is addressed very very strongly and robustly and stamped out before it can uh, propagate anywhere. So I think it's something we need to keep a very close watch on, and hopefully it's not another exercise in filling the coffers of vaccine companies. I hope it's not that again. That's all I will say about that. Okay, Lisa Rose says, why were the British so successful in colonization? It's not like everyone in the world is weak, dumb, or easy to influence. And plus, why do Indians always get easily influenced when we are also some of the most hardworking and smartest people on earth? Okay, the question is, why were the British so successful in colonization? The British were so successful in colonization for a number of reasons. First of all, they perfected the organized uh, application of violence. They perfected it. The systematic and organized application of violence, replicable, repeatable processes and procedures and systems. So, first of all, they perfected the systematic and organized application of violence. They developed systems of violence, very good weapons. They deconstructed societies and identified their weak points and possible areas that could be exploited to divide societies, and by that they perfected the strategy of divide and conquer, divide and conquer, divide and rule. And of course they perfected the creation of supply chains, etc., which essentially is what underpins the current US hegemony of the world. The US have supply chains all across the world. Every kind of supply chain you can imagine, the Americans have that, and they safeguard that with their military bases across the world. The British started that. So that's why the British were successful in colonization. It's not about how strong, how powerful, how brave you are. It's all about systems and processes. That's what leads to success. And the British perfected this. The British, like they themselves like to say, are a nation of of bookkeepers, merchants, but merchants who perfected these things: the systematic application of violence and supply chains, and that's why they were so successful in colonization. So the rest of the world, I think, was less smart than the British. When you have to give it to them, and probably less evil, maybe. Yeah, and Indians, why do they get so easily influenced, etc.? Because Indians have an inferiority complex that's been ingrained among us for the best part of a century and a half, maybe 2 centuries, maybe more, the millennium of humiliation. So Indians, the past 1,000 years or so, slowly started seeing themselves as not very powerful, not strong, destined to lose, destined to have bad luck, so on and so forth. And these days, there is this mental colonization because of the English language, the education system, and so on. So Indians have this inferiority complex that foreigners are better, white skinned people are better than brown skinned people, and all that. That's something I have never suffered from, but Indians unfortunately do. And that is what something that infuriates me no end, but that's where we are today. It's because of this mental uh, brainwashing, colonization, mental conditioning, whatever you want to call it. That's why they have this. Indians are like this. That's why the Indians are like this. Okay, Priyanka Taneja says, in today's day and age, how does one determine if a particular news outlet is reporting the truth or not? I have been following example A for almost a year now to get my daily dose of news. But of late, I've been observing that the anchor has been quoting certain very controversial news outlets like the print. I'll just say, okay, example B, C, D, etc. And that's really making me question the integrity of this particular channel. Can we not trust any news channel or journalist in today's times? Are they all sold out to their anti-India masters? Okay, what's the deal? Look, media is an industry, it's a business, they have to make money. They are not in this business for the purpose of spreading truth. They are in this business to make for the purpose of making money. And to make money, you need people to give you money. So you can either have a business model in which you have advertisements and the advertisers pay you money, or you can have people who sponsor your news and they pay you money. But then you have to dance according to their tunes. Okay. So in today's day and age, you cannot genuinely rely on any single news outlet. You simply can't. Today, you only have narratives, you don't really have the truth. To truly understand what's really happening, you need to have a very strong grasp of world history, of the causality change, cause and effect chain. And you need to still be able to take a 360-degree view at what everybody is saying and then use your best judgment to understand what's truly happening. It's not easy. Yeah. So how do you know whether a certain news outlet is reporting truthfully or not? So first of all, nobody's going to report truthfully. There's going to always going to be some bias. But let's say you have 10, let's say French news outlets, okay? 10 news outlets in France. Now, if you are French, I would say you need to have some kind of loyalty to your country, and you should have some kind of loyalty to your nation's interest. So the first red flag to look out for is when a media outlet is reporting is spreading a narrative that goes counter to their own nation's interest. That is the first red flag you have to look out for. But for that, you have to understand what is that nation's interest. So forget about France, look at India. Hopefully, we have a reasonably good understanding of what constitutes the Indian national interest, right? Hopefully, most of us have some idea of what our national interest is. Now, look at all the media outlets. There's so many, right? And ask yourself, which of these outlets, not one but multiple, I'm sure, which of these outlets consistently reports many stories that create a narrative that is counter to India's national interest? Just ask yourself that question. That should give you a reasonably good answer. So that's how it goes. There is no truth anymore today. It's all narratives. You either have a pro nation narrative or an anti nation narrative. And the truth sometimes is somewhere in between. Okay. But you got to be loyal to your nation, to your people, to your nation's interest. And many of these media outlets are spreading narratives that go counter to the nation's interest. In that case, what you can do is you can dig a little deeper and see who is funding them, and then who is funding those funders and who is controlling the funders. And then very interesting stories come out. It's not to 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 discover, not very hard to discover. And then it becomes very clear who is actually out there to harm India. Which nations are out there to harm India? It's generally one or two nations, the usual suspects. But it takes time to do this. It takes hard work to do this. You got to do a lot of digging. You need to know how to dig, how to look, where to look for all and all that. But if you do it, you will discover the truth. It's not that hard to discover. Okay. Coma List says fungi that can absorb radiation have been growing all over the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, the ruined Chernobyl nuclear power plant. Could you explain how this process occurs? Okay, interesting. Yes, so there have been news reports of a certain species or a certain set of species of fungus, and that's been growing all over the walls of this Chernobyl power plant, which is a very dangerous power plant because it's, we know what happened in 1986. It essentially exploded and it spewed nuclear material all over the place, radioactive material all over the place, and it is still a major nuclear hazard. A tremendous amount of radiation is still coming out of the place. It's going to continue for probably thousands of years. Okay. So, and yet, over there on the walls of the building and the control panels and all that, there's this fungus that's spreading all over the place, a very dark fungus. And it's been discovered that this fungus actually absorbs the radiation and uses that as fuel for growing. So I think it's called radiosynthetic fungus or something. So when you have plants, plants with green leaves, they absorb sunlight, and that is a process called photosynthesis, and you have molecules like ATP, etc. And there's a whole biochemical process that happens, and that's how plants uh, absorb energy from sunlight and turn that into fuel for growth and so on and so forth. So these fungi are doing the same thing, but not with sunlight. They're doing it with radiation, gamma and alpha, beta, gamma, whatever. Probably gamma radiation. Gamma radiation is photons, but extremely high energy photons. Sunlight is like regular energy that we are used to. It doesn't really harm us. But gamma ray photons are extraordinarily more energetic than sunlight photons. So that's what these fungi are absorbing, and they are somehow converting the energy of those photons into energy that they can use. So these fungi, they have a pigment called melanin. So melanin is something all humans have, okay, to whatever extent. The more melanin you have in your skin, the darker skin you have, and the less melanin you have, the lighter skin you are. That's how it is. So everybody has some melanin in their skin. These fungi have melanin, and the photons, the gamma ray photons, or whatever, maybe it's electrons, beta rays, or whatever it is, or alpha rays, helium nuclei, whatever radiation it is hitting these melanin molecules, and somehow it's exciting electrons, and somehow by some process it is uh, allowing these fungi to use that as energy and probably convert that into something that is usable in some form. So I'm not sure if this the biologists, scientists, etc. have exactly determined how it's happening, but that's kind of how it is happening. These are fungi, very unusual fungi that have melanin. They are using radiosynthesis to grow and to thrive. That's what's happening in brief. Jyotirmai says, as an older generation person, what's your opinion on the growth of the country? How much has India or Bharat changed since your childhood and youth in terms of social, economic, and environmental conditions, for better or worse? Right. So when I was a little kid, look, I was born in 1976. Okay, in the winter, in the autumn of 76. That's a long time ago, obviously. And I recall when I was a kid, India was way less populated than it is today. Today, India is this bustling place full of crowds. That time, it was not like that. The population was much, much lower than what it is today. It was visibly lower. So I think in the 1970s, 80s, early 80s, India's population must have been around 600 million, less than half of what it is today. Okay, that's how it was. That's number one. Secondly, there was tremendous poverty compared to what you have today. I recall as a kid, it was normal to see people walking around barefoot in cities. And the major mode of transportation for most people was a bicycle. Okay, that's the childhood memories I have. And in the early 80s, most people did not have televisions. Okay, and people had those transistor radios and things like that. And then I spent many years abroad, out of the country. So when I come back, it's kind of changed, but it's still extremely poor, the country. And now everybody has televisions. Most people have black and white televisions, and some people have color televisions and so on. But there is only one TV channel that across the country. It's called Doordarshan, and it has sessions, sabha, subah ki sabha, sham ki sabha. Only a few hours a day the television channel is on, and it's all typically government propaganda and extremely boring programming. And there is no mention of what's happening outside of India. So India was essentially like North Korea. The TV news only reported what ribbon cutting ceremony which minister attended and what speech which minister gave. That's how it was. India was actually like North Korea, extremely isolated from the rest of the world. No economic growth, no prospects, the queues for everything. People had to stand in queue for God knows what items. Most people used to cook with kerosene stoves and whatnot. Everything was in short supply. Artificial shortages of everything. Terrible, terrible condition India was in. Okay, when I was a kid, small kid. Today's India is essentially heaven compared to what you have today, what you had when I was a little kid. Very different India. But today's youngsters won't understand that. And that's the problem. We have come a really long way. And much of the growth has happened in more recent times. Let me just put it that way. So, yeah, India has changed tremendously. There was no energy in the country in those days. There was no great sense of hope in those days. Everything progressed at a snail's pace. Today, people can actually hope. People have big ambitions today. You didn't have that at the time. And there was no self confidence among the people of India at the time. Today, you have it. So, India has changed tremendously and it needs to change even more for the better. So, let's all work together to make it happen. Okay, Arijit Banerjee says, I recently got rejected by the girl of my dreams. I'm feeling like a loser. Any tips so I can lessen the pain of my heart? Oh, bro, I sorry for what happened to you, sir. Okay, look, life is gonna be about a lot of rejection. The most successful people in life are the ones who have experienced the most rejection. If you're scared of rejection, if one rejection hurts you and it gives you heart pain or whatever, you need to do better than that. So, firstly, I would say if you've been rejected by the girl of your dreams, don't take it personally. Okay, don't take it personally. Don't take any rejection personally. Everybody has certain hopes and aspirations and some agenda, and maybe it doesn't work with you, right? So, look, if somebody rejects you, it doesn't mean that it means you're bad or you're a loser or something. It means that that person wants something else. That is their problem, right? And it's not like the girl who rejected you is the only girl out there. There's a million girls out there, right? So the point is, you've got to learn how to handle rejection. You will not succeed until you can take rejection in your stride and not let it affect you, right? So that's what I would say. So I would say that if that was the girl of your dreams, then you need to dream bigger and dream better. I'm sure that the right girl is somewhere out there waiting for you. So there's nothing, don't take it personally, mainly. If you take it personally, if you take everything that happens to you personally, then you will always feel like a loser. You've got to simply change your attitude and change the way you frame things, right? So in every sphere of life, you're gonna have rejection, and the faster you get rejected, the faster you get the data that helps you understand how to not get rejected and how to do better. So if you want to succeed in life, find ways of getting rejected more and more often, and then try to increase your strike rate in everything in life. Okay, I'm not just talking about girls, okay, but overall, that's what I would say. So it's no big deal. It's no big deal at all. Somewhere out there, there's a girl who's the right girl for you, and you will, I'm sure, eventually find her. So all the best, sir. All the best, Arijit. Okay, with that, I am done with the questions for today, and I will now take some questions from the live chat. So, uh, go for it. Ask me questions in the live chat, and we're gonna answer as many of those as we can. Yes. Um, Ansh Prakash says top 5 movies rapid rated by you. Look, I love movies. I've watched so many movies, but one of my favorite genre is comedy. Another favorite genre is science fiction. So what? What would I say? Some random Mars Attacks, The Fifth Element, The Mask. What else would I say? The Good, the Bad, the Ugly. That's a Western. Okay, and maybe Interstellar. So here we have 5 minutes, 5 movies. By no means the top 5 movies, but the first 5 that came to my mind. Okay. Mm, okay, let's take some questions. Uh, Malik said asks me how many rejections I got. In some things, I've got zero rejections. So there you have it. In some things. In other things, I got lots of rejections. Overall, you get lots. Overall. Uh, Manish Avasti says, I was sitting in the front row, first row when I came for a speaker session at IIM Bangalore. Okay, good, good, good. I must have seen you there. I do have some questions that I wasn't able to ask you. Can we connect on LinkedIn? Send me an invite on LinkedIn and I'll look into it. Or you can ask me questions here. But yeah, nice to have you here. Okay, now let's take some questions, right? Some. Um, okay, what is this? Sohan Barab says, are elected representatives needed today? The citizenry can directly vote or debate on policy via the web using use blockchain technology for verification, have appropriate bars for sensitive pivotal policies, etc. So, are elected representatives needed today? Um, that's a good question. The thing is, you can do everything on the web. You can use blockchain, etc., for verification. But these technologies are kind of, let's say, some of these technologies can be compromised. The internet, if something is on the internet, if something is flowing on virtually, it can be intercepted, it can be hacked. There is that. Blockchain, what if there is a space weather event and more than half the computers in the world get fried? You need 51% for the blockchain to work properly, right? So there is that problem also. So when you have such problems, you have to fall back on the old fashioned things of having actual representatives. But assuming that the technology is fail proof and foolproof, maybe you can you know experiment with a virtual network state or something, like some intellectuals like to talk about. It's an interesting idea, but I would say one should be careful about trying to change things that have worked for a long time. Of course, you need to always keep progressing and keep improving things, but some things probably are there for a reason. uh, so what if you do away with the entire system of elected representatives who represent you in parliament or whatever, and then you put everything online, and something happens, some act of god, like they say, a space weather event, um, solar storm that wipes out your satellites and fries your networks and fries your computers systems and all that, then what do? Then you are left with nothing. then your society can descend into anarchy and chaos. So I think, considering all these, even though these are remote possibilities, but it's still possible. It's still possible. So that's why I would say we should still have elected representatives. Yeah. Arkamanna says, "What's the future of Sheikh Hasina? What will be her next destination?" I think her destination will be India only. What's the future? I think she will stay in India for the foreseeable future. And it's possible that the Bangladeshi government, the puppet government, the puppet US puppet regime, will try to put pressure on India via the US to extradite Sheikh Hasina to Bangladesh for trial or whatever. So, and they may perhaps get the UN involved in that to put additional pressure on India. So India needs to be prepared for these things. But I think the future is that she's going to stay in India. That's how I see it going. Okay. McLovin says, "Why are all countries facing the problem of illegal immigration? From India to Japan to Europe, this cannot be a coincidence." When it comes to India, we have had tremendous amount of illegal immigration from Bangladesh. And then Rohingyas have been settled in India by certain organizations with the connivance of whoever. Okay. So it is estimated that probably about 100 million Bangladeshis may be in India by now. It's possible. In 2014, the government was putting out a figure of 50 million. That's 10 years ago. By now, it could possibly be 100 million. So that's a disaster for India, actually. Foreigners leeching away at our resources and getting benefits that citizens should have. So that's bad. So that's the problem that India is facing. Japan is now open to immigration. That's a disaster for Japan. I really, really, really feel sorry for Japan. They never wanted this, but they don't have any control over their destiny. They are controlled by the US. So now Japan is open for immigration, and what can I say? The quality of immigrants that are coming into Japan isn't the best. And then you have Europe, which is being flooded with immigrants, a certain kind of demographic of immigrants, certain age and ethnic and religious demographic of immigrants. It's not a coincidence. It's all being done on purpose. It is all being done systematically to essentially re-engineer the demographics of these nations on a massive industrial scale. In the case of India, it is because of problems within India itself. We have certain paramilitary forces that are supposed to safeguard our borders, and it has come out in the media so many times that they have been essentially, in some way or the other, allegedly complicit in facilitating the influx of Bangladeshis into India for a price. Allegedly, there is that, and certain political parties allegedly have been part of this problem, and so on. So I think it was the central government's prerogative that even if there is corruption, blah blah blah, they should have ensured that this doesn't happen. So clearly a failure at multiple levels. That's what I can see. Yeah. So there you have it. I'm not taking any POK questions today. Okay. Akshay says, "How can we merge POK into India?" By being patient. So being patient. Pakistan is going to keep on existing as long as the Americans need Pakistan to exist. And that means that India cannot take POK back until for a while. For a while. So my point is, India needs to become so powerful that POK comes into India automatically without us trying to take it. That will take time, minimum 20 years of economic growth, consistent economic growth. That's the key to India's future. And in the meanwhile, we should also not neglect other things. If you only focus on the economy and don't do anything about illegal immigration, if you only focus on the economy and don't do anything about education, then you're going to have this big economy which you're going to hand over to your enemies. So I think the government needs to wake up from its slumber and do something about these things. But overall, I think it's a good government, the best we've had for a long time. Okay. Okay, Pinky Kumari says, "I feel devastated. Even after being Sikkim state rank 1, I couldn't get a medical seat in my state counseling NEET 2023. Another day of feeling worse being a general category student." I'm so sorry. It's terrible. What can I say about this? Being Sikkim state rank 1, you could not get a medical seat. That's incredible. That tells you how bad the system is, and this is why we have talented people going out of the country. Brain drain, because the country doesn't treat them right. The system doesn't treat them right. If you are Sikkim state rank one and you can't get a medical seat, it's incredible. It's shameful that talented students are being treated like this. Uh, so what I would say is that, look, I know it hurts. I know it hurts. Look, I've been there. Okay, and the point is, you cannot let this stop you going forward in your life. You tried something, you tried your best. I'm sure you came first in your state, and then you still did not get what you want. So what can you do now? You got to take a day or two to recover from this and move on, and try for plan B in case you have plan B. You clearly are a good student, so you'll do well. So you'll have to find some other thing, and some other course of action, and go forward. Maybe go abroad. That's what most talented students do. I don't blame them for that. And I've always said that if you have a choice between staying in India and going abroad, I would say go abroad. Try your luck there. Do your best. Gain a lot of experience. Gain a lot of wealth. And then if you feel like it, you come back to India and help your country. Or don't if you don't want to. I'm okay with people even staying abroad. Spread Indian genetics and culture abroad. That's fine. Even that's fine. So Pinky, I would say I really feel sorry for you, and I would say do not get discouraged. Do not spend too much time pitying yourself. Pick yourself up, stand up, go back, stand back on your feet, and find the next thing to do. And the point is, you clearly are a very talented person. If you can comes first in your state, you clearly are talented. So you will do well. The main thing is, don't be devastated, don't be dispirited, don't give up. I'm sure you're still pretty young, right? So you'll do well in life overall. But the main thing is, be positive and don't give up. So all the best, and thank you for sharing this. It is important to share these stories, because the country cannot progress if we keep treating our talented young citizens and students in this manner. That's terrible. But Pinky, do not give up. Okay, you will do well. So all the best. Do well. Okay, that is. Okay, let's take some other questions. Something, yeah. Ansh Prakash says, any update on the Israel Palestine conflict? The USA seems to change for Israel. Stand seems to change. Yeah, there's nothing, no big news or no big development there, no big change in that. Right now, the focus is on the Iran Israel angle. Okay. The Palestine thing is already, well, it's going on. The Israelis have pounded Gaza, taken out lots of tunnels, taken out lots of terrorists. Obviously, it's caused a lot of collateral damage, civilians, etc. And that's why Israel is under a lot of, it's taken a lot of flack from the media. But yeah, there you have it. So right now, not any big major change. Uh, you're very welcome, Pinky. Aditya Khedekar says, why are the white people interested in the caste system of India? As the caste system is probably present in every culture. Yeah. Every culture has what you could call a caste system. I mean, the Japanese, they have the Burakumin. The French have the Kago. And there's much more. There's much more. Every country has its own caste system. And that is essentially the system of division of labor. You need division of labor, right, for any functioning society. But India has to be singled out. Hindus have to be singled out. The white people, the Westerners, are interested in the caste system of India because they want to use it to portray India as a very evil, backward society. That's what it is. Okay, to to perpetuate the atrocity narrative that the missionaries created in the 18th and 19th centuries. So that's what it is. Okay, that's why they are interested in this. Uh, Geopolitical Dubai says, I want to purchase an affordable telescope. Can you suggest any for beginners? I don't have a telescope myself. As a kid, I always wanted to have one, but I ended up never owning a telescope. So I would not be able to suggest one. But what I would recommend is go to any online website like what do you, Amazon, Flipkart, whatever, and look up what they have and look at the ratings. It should be four star plus, and whatever price range you have in mind, you can look for it in that. And as long as you have a reasonable amount of ratings and they're all above 4 stars, it should be a pretty good telescope. And then you can look at reviews of the telescope in other websites, maybe on websites from other countries and all, so that you get a better idea. So that's how I would do it if I was in the market for a telescope right now. So yeah, I'm glad that you're interested in astronomy or whatever it is. Telescopes can be used for multiple purposes, but I'm assuming astronomy. So yeah, all the best. Do get a good one. Okay, right. Let's see what else. Lots of other questions. Have I seen Breaking Bad? Have I watched Breaking Bad? Breaking Bad, fantastic. Yeah. Um. Yeah, it's a great series. One of the greatest I've seen. So yeah, I've watched it. I see a camera behind you. Are you a photographer? I'm not a photographer. I'm a videographer. I make videos, right? I make videos. I have YouTube channel, videos. There's a camera here. This is an old camera. It's a camera I bought in the year 2002. It's not a DSLR. It's a SLR. It is obsolete. I've just kept it as a display piece. And there's a lens. So this is a Canon EOS Rebel from 2002. It still has film in it, Kodak film, I believe. So I no longer use it, but it's there. So I thought just keep it somewhere. So it's sitting up there. I have a whole other bunch of cameras in other places. So I'm not a photographer. Uh, Never had the time for photography. I have some good cameras, but I use them for video purposes. So yeah. Um, okay, Sahil Mitra says, I'm from Siliguri. And do you think China will try and exploit the situation in Bengal and put pressure on the Siliguri corridor? I think it's unlikely right now, as of right now, that China will try to uh, exploit whatever's happening wherever and put pressure on the Siliguri corridor. Right now, it is not in China's interest to make things worse with India. Right now, India and China are both under tremendous amount of pressure from the US. So I would say it is not in China's interest to do all that at this point in time. Okay. Okay. Um, what else? Okay, Vinay Paul Gill says, do you believe India has been its own worst enemy since independence? You talk at length about the magnificent Mr. Nehru. Do you think Indians or foreign entities are to blame? Okay, I'll tell you what happened. In 1947, there was a transfer of power. India was given dominion status in 1950 or something. We became a republic. Okay, so there was a transfer of power from one set of crooks to another set of crooks, essentially. From a set of white skinned crooks to a set of brown skinned crooks, their minions, their puppets, their chosen successors. It was not a democratic process by any means. Okay. And those people who the British gave power to continued British policies, and that's why India is where India is. So I would not blame the people of India. The people of India have not been their worst enemies. It is those people who were placed in power by the British for their own selfish reasons who were India's worst enemies, essentially. Okay. And you can see the policies that they implemented for decades that ruined India, that artificially hampered India's growth and progress. So, you know, I don't blame the people of India at all. India has is a tremendously great nation with tremendous potential. But the individuals who have created the system and who are part of the system, most of them are to blame. Not all. There are some good people there also, lots of good people there also. But the majority have been mediocre at best, I'd say. That's why India is where it is. All right. Hi says how to deal with nervous breakdown. I'm just 18. All my all friends just left alone cheatings. It's hard to trust anyone. Please. Yeah. All right. What to do about that? Well, you got to find somebody to trust. Maybe family. Hopefully, you can trust family. Usually, family, at least close family, you should be able to trust. Uh, if you're reasonably lucky. Otherwise, if you really have no one to trust, you got to trust yourself. You're going to find a way out of a situation. So you've got to invest in yourself. One of the best ways to deal with depression, nervous breakdown, whatever, is to go out and absorb some sunlight. It's impossible to feel depressed when you have the sun staring you in the face. So you've got to take some time out, like I've said before, take some time out, be in the sun, absorb some sunlight for a few hours. Don't worry about skin damage or whatever. Go out in nature and try to reconnect with yourself and find your purpose in life. And as long as you are a valuable person and you transform yourself into a valuable person, you will attract the right people and you will have better friends. So, many people are born in places where they don't belong. And it takes a lot of willpower and effort to extricate yourself out of that place and that situation and go somewhere better. But once you do that, you will attract the right people around you. So it's all about believing in yourself and investing in yourself and overall trusting yourself. And one of the best ways of doing it, if you feel down, if you feel low, I think you should just go and exercise, work out, lift heavy weights. You do it for a few weeks, you feel so much stronger physically, and that makes you stronger mentally. So there are many ways of dealing with this. The main thing is don't give up on yourself. Don't pity yourself. Don't indulge in self pity. Work on yourself, invest in yourself, and work as hard as you possibly can, humanly can, to extricate yourself out of whichever situation you are in. And you will find that you do have the strength and the ability to do that. So, all the best, sir. Always be positive. Never have a negative mindset, even though things may seem bad. I know it's easier said than done, but trust me, I have been through things. Okay, these things. Everybody has, at a certain age, has been through all these phases. So, all the best, sir. I wish you the best. You'll do well. You will do well. All right. So, with that, I will end this session. We are again way past 2 hours. So, okay, this is the end of today's session. So, thank you so much once again for all the questions. I today was able to take many live chat questions as well. So, thank you. And I will see you all very soon in the live streams that will come up next week. Until then, as always, take care and keep raising your standards and keep on striving and working hard and keep asking questions. Thank you. Bye.